Hi, and welcome to episode 148 of the Heartland Knits podcast. My name is Vicki, but you can find me as Heartland Knits on Ravelry and Instagram. And today is Sunday, July 3rd, 2016. It's the day before the 4th of July. Very deceptively quiet around here. But today's podcast is going to be short. I have a little bit of a lot of different topics. We'll do knitting and spinning and sewing and gardening, and I think that's it. But let's start out, as always, with what's been on my needles. And I have been knitting, as you might expect, on the black Bohus, the Forest Darkness Bohus, which is this yoke sweater. I almost stabbed myself in the face with a needle there. These are my neck stitches I did a provisional cast on, so they're just on a spare needle to hold the stitches. But I think the last time I showed it to you, I was maybe partway down the first sleeve. So I have the first sleeve done, and I have the second sleeve done, and I am working on the edge of the body. I know I did those in a kind of a different order than I said I was going to do the first sleeve and then finish the body and then do the second sleeve at the end. But it just turned out when I had to do a lot of calculating and figuring so that I came out at the right length, because I'm going to do a vertical band, and I sort of had to figure out the spacing I wanted for the buttonholes before I finished the sweater. So I didn't feel quite up to doing that at the point I finished the first sleeve, so I went on to the second sleeve just so I could keep moving on the sweater. But this is what I ended up doing for the edge. It's different than I've done on any other of the boho sweaters that I've done. This is number 7, and let's see if it will show. You can sort of see it there. I did like a twisted rib for part of it, and then I did just like a kind of a simple cable, and then went back into the twisted rib and ended off with a picot bind off. And what it does is it just makes this little sort of like ruffly edge, and I really like it. So I'll put the sleeve on this way just so you can sort of see. It kind of just makes a little like flare. It really takes advantage of the cable flare. You know, when you get do a cable, it pulls the stitches in, and you can see it really like pulls them in just right at that point. So it's kind of simple. I didn't want anything like too fancy, because in this black yarn you're not going to see it anyway. And I love just the kind of little ruffly edge. And to me, the yoke of the sweater is kind of very geometric, and I like the sort of vertical line of the twisted rib. Both sleeves are the same length, and I kind of put it on when I finished them, and I think they're about a half an inch too short. I did them the same length, the same number of rounds as my other boho sweaters, but I think because it pulls in and makes it tighter around the cuff, they just feel a little shorter. So when I'm finished, I'm going to take this out down to the cable and do maybe a half inch more of the twisted rib, and then do this again. But I'm not worried about that. It's wearable like this. It's just I'm somebody, I want my sleeves long enough. I don't want them way long. I don't like to wear sweaters when they're over my hands, but I don't want to feel like I'm pulling them down. So anyway, the bottom edge, I'm making that twisted rib a little bit longer. You can't really see in this dark yarn. I have a few more rounds of twisted rib, and then I will do the cable. I increased a few stitches before starting that rib because I don't want the bottom of the sweater to go in like the sleeve does. You know, I don't want it like to get narrower right at my hips there. So I increased a few stitches before starting the ribbing, and then when I'm doing the ribbing in the same needle that I used for the rest of the sweater, which is a size 1, 2.25 millimeter. And then when I get to the cable, I'm going to use a larger needle to hopefully prevent it from pulling in, you know, quite so much. If there's a bigger needle, you know, it would be wider. So hopefully that will help that. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do for the edge, if I'm going to let it get like this sort of frilly or not. I'm not sure if I'm going to want that around the very bottom, and I'm also not sure like about doing that around the neckband. You know, I might kind of decrease stitches so that it's like not as frilly, or, you know, not do the picot as often or something. So it's coming along. It's knitting camp is about 2.5 weeks away, so we're coming down. It'll get done. I'm pretty sure. What it means is there'll be no camp contest entry again this year, because, you know, this needs to get finished. Once I finish that band, I have to do the crochet for the steek, which is going to be tough to see in this yarn. But I know this is like a really fuzzy yarn, so even if I miss a stitch, I'm not too worried about the whole thing falling apart. And then I have to do the vertical bands, and then the neckband should be, you know, that's, you know, going to be tiny. So, but the vertical bands are going to be hard because you have to, you know, fish the yarn, you know, up and through, and make sure you kind of catch every row. So, and then the vertical bands are going to they're going to be alternate between the twisted rib and then the cable. And then where the cable is, that's where I'm going to put the buttonholes. So that's kind of why I had to have it all figured correctly for the length before starting the bottom band, because I didn't want to get kind of up here to where, you know, and end up with you know, the cables like too close together. So anyway, that's been my one knitting project. I am starting to think about like other things I want to knit. I really want to knit a shawl. Ideally, I would like to knit a shawl before camp along with finishing this sweater. I don't know if that will happen. But the other thing that I took out and I've started looking at is I want to do a pair of Latvian mittens this summer, I've decided. So I took out my Latvian mitten book and have been kind of just looking through that. I'm not allowing myself to wind any yarn or anything because, yeah, this needs to get done. So that's been my knitting. So off the needles, I have nothing off the needles, but I thought I would show you a little spinning. I think I mentioned a while back that I think I showed it to you that I was going to take a spinning project along to ZK, and it's like a spindle project that I started. So I thought I'd show you where I am on that. It is, well, here, this is like one of the big things. I had 3 of these. This was 8 ounces of fiber from Crown Mountain Farms, my last of my Crown Mountain Farms, because they're not in business anymore. And I'm spindling it, and I started spindling it on my little Golden Tsunami, and so that's where this one is. It is, I think I measured the wraps per inch, but I don't remember what it is right now. But it's a fairly like thin single. I'm thinking it'll be either a 2-ply or a 3-ply. This is Superwash Merino. And then I was just about to this point. I think I did one little strip of fiber after, but last weekend I, had this, and I was going somewhere that I was going to take it with me. See, now I've got this is why I put these little rubber things on here, because now I've got another spindle in here and it's like caught in there. It's like gets caught in the basket. But I wanted to take a spindle along, and that one was almost full. So I thought, oh, I'll just start a new spindle. And I took this one, which you can see that flower there, and you can see the start of the fiber there on the back. So this one has gotten to be this full. And I wish I could tell you where this spindle came from. It was a gift from a friend, and I don't remember. I think it was an Etsy store, and I don't know why. In my head, I'm thinking it was from Texas. I know it wasn't Butterfly Girl because I'd had her spindles before, but but I'm not sure like where it came from. But it's really pretty, and it's a really nice little spinner. It's when I knew I was going to be sitting down, so I wanted sort of a short like shaft spindle, so that it's easy to like get a decent length of fiber on when you're using drop spindle and you're sitting down. And it's really pleasant. It's a really nice little spinner. So I have these two, and then of a size bump like that big, I have like this much fiber left. So I'm hoping to fit the rest of that on here. I could probably squish a little more on this spindle. This is my Golding. It's probably my favorite of all my spindles, my little Tsunami. I have a couple other Goldings, but they're bigger ones. But this one you can really pack a lot on before really noticing a difference in the weight of yarn that you're spinning. So that is my spinning. I've been trying to do a little bit of that kind of every night, just something different than knitting on the sweater. In sewing, I have been sewing a fair amount. I can't remember if I told you I got different lining fabric for the blue eyelet, the one that's going to match the sweater, because I'm planning on wearing that with this sweater at knitting camp this summer. So I want to get that done. So I just got some kind of cream cotton. I couldn't get the stuff that I got this time. I couldn't find the exact same stuff that I had the last time. I even asked the girl at Joann's, and because I took a little sample of it in, and she couldn't even come up with what it was or where I could find it. So, but it's fine. It's just white cotton or cream cotton. And I have the bodice sewn together and the skirt sewn together. They're in separate pieces, but they all have they're all French seamed and everything. And then I have kind of laid out the blue material because I had to kind of fold it in a different way because I want to use the scallop for the bottom hem. So I had it kind of laid out and all the pieces put on there, and they all fit. So I have enough material, which is what I wanted to make sure of. And I just haven't kind of cut it out and started sewing on it, because then I got the lining part done, and then I started thinking it was getting to be the end of June, and the other dress was going to be a halter dress style. And I thought, if I'm going to have that dress for the summer, I need to have it done now, so that when it's warm, because we don't have really warm temperatures for that long. So, and I was really hoping to wear it to this thing last weekend, because I thought it would have been the perfect thing. So I kind of hurried up and I had to do, I was going to do this halter dress. So I, like started working. I had to like figure out and, kind of do um, a muslin of the bodice and stuff. And so I did that. And before I started sewing on it, you'd think that I would have laid out the fabric of what I really wanted to use for the dress, which is that pareo that I got in Hawaii. And no, I didn't. So I was like sewing on the bodice and like fitting it and figuring it out, and got it, kind of was going to lay it out on the fabric, and it doesn't fit, which was heartbreaking because I really, really want that dress. So that made me, I kind of looked in the book. They have like a strapless version of, like bodice, and I'm not going to wear that. But I thought, well, I could put straps on it, and do something like that, and I would have enough material. So I kind of just played. I kind of ripped the muslin apart and was like playing, because they used the same kind of back pieces for that, and was just sort of like playing and figuring it out. And then I got to the point where I thought, I'm just getting tired of having to trace out the pattern pieces. So I was at Joann's, and I thought, I'm just gonna look for a regular pattern, like one that I can just cut out. I don't have to trace around and get, because the first dress I did, the first bodice was too big, and then I had to make it to make it smaller. And so this one I made it too small, then I had to make it bigger. And so anyway, I was at Joann's, and I thought, I'm just gonna look for a pattern of a dress that might work. And so I bought this pattern, which is New Look 6457, because I thought for that I might have enough fabric. I haven't kind of laid it out yet, but there's this dress right here that just has, it's like an old-fashioned sundress, like back when I was a teenager. We had dresses like that, just kind of like a regular dress, and then it just had straps. I mean, this one has a back on it. It looks like this from the front, but this has a taller back. But this is just so I thought, well, maybe I would have enough fabric for that one. But it also has a couple other. I really like this dress. It's very similar to the dress that pattern that I made. It's got the princess seam bodice, but this one has kind of more of a gathered skirt. But it also has the halter version, but it has this version that has the straps have are done with a different color. And that's what I'm thinking is I might have to put that project sort of aside for this summer, just because I don't know that I'm kind of inexperienced enough sewer to deal with, this. It's the straps, and then kind of the band right around the top of the bodice are a different color. And I thought maybe that's what I need to do with that project, is kind of use another fabric to sort of maybe do color block, or just so that I can extend the amount of material that I have, so that I can actually, because I really, really want to dress out of that. So anyway, I thought this one, even if it doesn't work with this, I still would have another, dress option that will be the same sort of shape as this dress. Because this one has a higher back, kind of like this one does, and the other dress that I have is lower. So I thought, kind of now I'm starting to think of fall, and I might want to make ones, the material that I have is very, very summery. And so maybe I will want to make, kind of like a dress that's more like transitional, like fall sort. And, the back of it being, more covering more would be better for that. So anyway, that's where I am kind of with sewing. So now I have to get back to the eyelet dress and get that cut out. I think it will go pretty quickly. Like once I actually, it's just, I want to make sure I do it right the first time. But after that, I'm just doing, sewing the lining, the bodice, and everything, and doing all that was so much easier this time than the first time, just because I knew sort of how everything fit together and how to do everything. So I'm hopeful that the rest of it will go smoothly too. Then in gardening, I don't have any video or anything of the roses. I've been posting pictures of them on Instagram of the garden and the roses, and they make me so happy. But I did get more roses. I know. I mean, since the last time I talked to you. So when this big greenhouse that I went to, that I got kind of the David Austin roses at the beginning of May, they have a thing where I don't even know if it was like every $1 or every $10 or whatever that you spend, you get, they have like bonus bucks kind of thing. And then they have different weeks during the year, like during the summer, that you can redeem them for half the price of whatever. And I remember when she was checking me out and she was telling me about this, and I'm thinking, I drove down here, it was like 1.5-hour drive. Yeah, I'm not gonna like be coming back, because it was like the middle of June that the first time you could redeem them would be. And she said, I was just buying roses. She said, we'll still have roses. And originally I thought, I'm just going to give this to, somebody that I know, that's like lives like closer, lives in Madison or something, that would, be closer to go there. But then I thought, well, if I could get like a rose for, it'd be like half off, or like, then that would be quite a deal. So I went down, and they still had roses. They had a lot of them. They still had Austin roses. So I got 3 more. So the one that I got was one that got left behind the first time, because the first time I went, I had sort of 7 picked out, and then I scaled it back to just getting 5. And this was one that got like put back, and they still had it. So I was really glad. And it's called Tranquility, and it's a white rose. And the bushes were really nice. That was part of the reason why I was going to get it the first time. They were kind of the farthest along of at that point. And so anyway, this had a ton of buds, and it's already bloomed, and they were really pretty. They looked exactly like the picture. So it's nice to have a white rose. It kind of sets everything else off. So the other one that I had, was going to get the first time, they didn't have any more. But they had this one, which I'd been seeing a lot of pictures of. So I was, I chose the one that they didn't have was a pink rose, and this is a pink rose. And because I've been, reading this, rose forums and things, and people were posting pictures, and they were posting a lot of this one, and this is called Sceptered Isle. And the picture of this, they don't show, they just look like the kind of full, kind of rounded blossoms. But the picture from people's gardens, where they kind of open up and they're this like rounded shape, but then if you look down in, they don't have like the center full of petals, but you can see the yellow stamens like really clearly, and it's just really pretty. So so I bought one of those. When I planted this one, it got a little stress, and it had a bunch of buds when I, planted it, but it kind of stressed a little bit and dropped a lot of the buds, but it has some new ones. So I haven't seen that one bloom yet. So I'm, waiting kind of anxiously. And then I went, so I was like two, um, and I had enough to get like half off of both those two. Of the bonus bucks. So, but I was all the way down there, right? There were still ones that I didn't, bring back. Um, the first time I was down there, this one was completely like off my radar. I didn't give it a second thought of getting it. But then when I, was looking at what was left and I was thinking, well, I should get another one. And this one is a completely sort of different color than all the rest. I mean, it's a very different, unusual color. And I wasn't really sure like what it was gonna look like. And it's called Benjamin Britten. And it's just a kind of a different color. It's not really red. It's not really orange. It's not really pink. And it seems to do differently in different people's gardens. Some people's it looks very orange, and some people's it looks, So anyway, I thought I'm just going to take a chance, and if I don't like it, I can always, put it in the back garden or whatever. It was just a very big, healthy plant too, and it had a ton of buds. So I planted it, and they opened, and it was this beautiful sort of kind of fuchsia-y leading towards orange, which sounds like a little weird. Like the outside petals are kind of got an orange cast, and the inside ones are more like hot pinky, fuchsia. And it's hard to describe. But they were very small flowers, and the bush had a ton of them on. So I don't know. It says they are. Does it say what size the flowers are? It doesn't. But anyway, I took a chance, and just because it's like a totally different than all the rest of them that I have out there. So I actually have room. I've counted like for 4 more for like another year. And one of them is like my Milwaukee Calatrava. I want to move out of there, not because I don't like it. It got eaten by rose slugs quite badly this year, but then it bloomed, and it's such a fragrant bloomer, and that's a white one, but it's still like maybe a foot high, and this is the second year. So I think it's kind of in the second row and right in the middle. So it needs to, I want to move it just to somewhere like more on the edge. But anyway, those are my new roses. Last weekend, I didn't do a podcast because I was at the garden walk that the garden club puts on. Saturday night, we got kind of like a private, tour. We went kind of, procession style in cars to there were 6 different gardens, and we got to view them all. And then the homeowners of all of them got to see everybody else's too. And then we had like a potluck afterwards. And then Sunday during the garden walk, I, helped out at one of the, they were 2 gardens, but they were right next to our neighbors. And so I was at their house, and it was so interesting. I've never actually been gone on it. I always wanted to like take my mom because she loved gardens, and I don't know, we just never kind of got around to doing it. We were going to go one year, and it was either like really, really like scary hot temperatures, humid, and one year it rained, and then it got to the point where I was worried about, I didn't know like for like walking if it would be, it was harder for her to get around, so that if it would be, hard for her to walk, and things. So we never went. So this was the first time I went, and it was really interesting. The gardens were fabulous. I mean, very, very different from one lady who has been in her house for 30 years and had virtually no piece of grass left. From the front yard to the backyard was completely, plantings. Her terrace, which is what we call the strip of grass between the sidewalk and the street. I know other people, like other parts of the country, call it like different parkway or different terms, but she had grass there, and she said she gives the guy across the street beer to come and cut that little piece of grass for her. And so like from her, that's kind of like a lifetime of gardening, to these two houses where I was on Sunday were right on the bay. They were beautifully landscaped and kind of really big houses, and they had that sort of, it's very popular, that kind of landscaping where it's kind of like a plant here, and then there's a plant here, and then there's, it looks very neat and tidy. It's not my favorite, but I kept thinking this one had just like a hosta, and then, just separate little plants, and I kept thinking how beautiful it would be with like a big perennial border, kind of very traditional, and I don't know. So anyway, it was just fascinating to see that a Saturday night when I came home after seeing all of them. It was a really warm night, and I was sitting out on the porch, and I looked over at my little rose garden and thought, I love you best, which really, that's the point, right? Whether it's your garden or your knitting, you want, whatever you're doing, you want to love the most. It doesn't really matter kind of what other people are doing, as long as you love what you're doing. So anyway, that was gardening, and just, well, for show and tell, it's relates to the garden, is I made a couple of these. These are lavender wands. I posted a picture on Instagram when I was doing it. It's been a while. I should do a couple more today, but it's been a while since my lavender has produced enough kind of long stems to make one of these. And what it is like, this is the flower head, kind of, it would be growing up this way. They're like bent over, and then you weave the ribbon in, so you enclose like the little flower. You can sort of see some of the little lavender buds kind of sticking through, and then to enclose them. It smells really good, and I usually put these in with my sweaters when I store them, or my shawls, because it keeps everything, it makes everything smell really good. I know this does not, keep that M word away, but it makes things smell good. So I made a couple of those, and I have enough to make several more. So that is about all that I have. So thanks so much for watching, and until I see you next week, from my heart to yours, happy knitting.